Everyone thought it was just another inspection, until the commander's voice cracked and the entire base fell silent. Because what he saw on her skin wasn't just a tattoo. It was a memory he'd buried 17 years ago. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. They called her Sergeant Elena Ward, the kind of soldier who never raised her voice. But somehow every order she gave carried weight. She'd been deployed 3 times, decorated twice, and wounded once. Yet, standing that morning under the blistering Afghan sun, facing 180 soldiers on the parade ground, she felt more nervous than she ever had in combat. The quiet murmur moved through the ranks. Word had spread fast. Someone had questioned her conduct. A missing piece of insignia, a rumor about falsified credentials, something petty that had somehow reached the highest office on base. And now, Commander Briggs himself was walking toward her, broad-shouldered, graying, his medals flashing under the sun. "Elena Ward," he said, his tone sharp. "Step forward." She obeyed, boots clicking against the dry concrete. A few soldiers shifted uneasily. Briggs scanned the line of uniforms, then turned back to her. "You know the regulation. Any unapproved markings or symbols on the body are grounds for review. Remove your upper jacket." Gasps whispered through the air like wind through dry grass. No one had ever heard that order before, not in front of an entire company. Elena's heart pounded. She wanted to protest, but she knew better. "Sir," she said, voice tight, "this isn't necessary." "It is," Briggs snapped. "Now." She hesitated only a second, then slowly unbuttoned her jacket. The fabric clung to her skin, soaked with heat and fear. Her undershirt came next. And then, exposed beneath the harsh sunlight, was the tattoo, a faded mark stretching across her ribs, the symbol of an eagle with broken wings. And a name beneath it. The name made the commander's jaw slacken. His eyes locked on the ink, and his voice, the same voice that had commanded battalions, failed him completely, because that name was his son's. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Dust swirled across the ground, carried by the wind, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. Briggs blinked, unable to look away. The lines of the tattoo were old, done by a steady hand, and beneath the eagle's shadow were the words, "For Nathaniel Briggs, my wingman." That he took a step back. Where did you get that?" His voice cracked, softer now, almost human. Elena looked straight ahead. "In Kandahar, sir. 16 years ago." A tremor passed through the watching soldiers. They'd heard stories about the commander's son, Lieutenant Nathaniel Briggs, a pilot who'd gone missing during an air raid in 2009, declared dead, but no one had ever known who'd been with him in those final moments. Briggs clenched his fists. "You served with my son?" "I did, sir," she said quietly. "We flew together. He saved my life." The commander's eyes glistened. His voice trembled between grief and disbelief. "You have no right to wear his name." "I didn't wear it, sir," she replied. "I carry it." The silence after that felt sacred. Even the wind seemed to die. Elena's mind flashed back to that night. The deafening sirens, the burning sky, the screaming metal of their helicopter spiraling down. She could still feel the heat of the flames licking the cabin, hear Nathaniel's voice shouting through the chaos. "Go, Elena. You have to jump." But she hadn't wanted to leave him. Not then. Not ever. He'd pushed her out seconds before the explosion, but she'd woken up in the dust, half-conscious, clutching his broken dog tag. And later, when she finally healed, she'd marked her body with his name, not out of vanity, but out of debt. Back in the present, the crowd of soldiers watched, unsure if they were witnessing an act of defiance or devotion. One of them whispered, "She served with his son?" Another muttered, "No wonder she never talked about her past." Briggs's breathing grew uneven. "You should have come to me," he said bitterly. "All these years, why hide this?" Elena looked at him, her face unreadable. "Because no one would have believed me. And I wasn't ready to be someone's ghost story." A murmur rippled through the ranks again, not of mockery this time, but of awe. Even the toughest sergeants lowered their eyes. The commander turned away, pressing a hand to his temple. The uniform that once felt like armor now hung heavy on his shoulders. That night, the story spread across the base like wildfire. Soldiers whispered in the mess hall, in the barracks, even over the static of radios. "She's the one who flew with Nathaniel Briggs. She's the reason his last mission wasn't forgotten." But what none of them knew was that the commander couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his office, staring at a photo of his son in uniform. The resemblance, the fire in the eyes, the steadiness in the stance, it was all there, reflected in her. The next morning, he summoned Elena again. Only this time, there were no soldiers, no audience, no parade ground. Just him and her, and the quiet hum of an old ceiling fan. "I looked into your record," he said slowly. "Everything checks out. You've been recommended for promotion twice, denied once, and never complained. You've done more for your unit than most ever will." She nodded, not knowing what to say. Then he added, almost a whisper, "You kept his memory alive." Her throat tightened. For the first time, she saw not a commander before her, but a father who'd never had a grave to visit. "I didn't do it for recognition," she said. "I did it because he deserved to be remembered as he was, brave, stubborn, and good." He nodded. He was all that, and more. A long silence followed, filled with the faint ticking of a clock. Then Briggs stood, walked to the window, and looked out over the training fields. "You're dismissed, Sergeant," he said quietly. "And thank you." She saluted, her hand trembling just slightly. "Sir." But as she turned to leave, he stopped her. "Sergeant Ward," he called out. "That tattoo. You keep it. Don't ever hide it again." Her lips parted in surprise that he met her gaze, eyes wet but proud. He'd have wanted that. Days passed, then weeks. Something changed on base, not in the rules, but in the air. Soldiers stood a little straighter when Elena passed. Some saluted her without being told to. Others simply nodded with quiet respect. And the commander? He began joining morning drills again, his voice steady, his presence restored. One afternoon, during a ceremony for fallen soldiers, he stepped up to the podium. The sun burned gold over the flag, and the crowd of uniforms shimmered like waves. He paused, then said, "Courage isn't always found on the battlefield. Sometimes it's in the heart of someone who refuses to let the past be forgotten." He looked toward Elena, standing at attention in the front row, her tattoo faintly visible beneath the sleeve of her uniform. "For years, I believed my son's story ended with his death," Briggs continued. "But today, I see that it didn't. Because his legacy lives in those who remember, and in one soldier who carried it when no one else would." There were no cheers, no applause. Just the sound of wind brushing across the field, like the whisper of wings. Later, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, Elena stood alone near the memorial wall. Her hand traced the engraved names, stopping at his. She closed her eyes. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "He knows now." Behind her, the commander approached quietly. "He always did," he said. They stood in silence, two soldiers bound by grief, respect, and something unspoken, the shared understanding that honor, once lost, can still be redeemed through remembrance. And for the first time in years, the weight on both their shoulders felt a little lighter, because courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it just refuses to fade, and in the echo of silence, under the same sun that once burned over the desert, the past finally saluted the present. Outro. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes in loyalty, sacrifice, and remembrance. Tell me in the comments what you think courage truly means, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, true-inspired stories every week. Your support helps keep these memories alive.